We are Godrej. That's us in ruby, green and blue. And this is a story of the little things we do. It started with a little thing we made to protect you and your things. Over 100 years on, we're still doing the same, except it now has wings. Little things that will take you places you can't get to on an airplane. And little things that circle the earth and tell our farmers when it'll rain. Little things that keep our animal friends hale and hearty. And little things that keep kids healthy and naughty. Little things that keep not just our homes, but even medicines and vaccines cool. And little things that rinse away dirt and allergens, so your little ones don't miss a day of school. Little things that make washing hands so much fun. And some that make your cars and homes smell like spring. Little things that keep diseases away. And some that make your hair shine and swing. Little things that help you make things, big, small, and everything in between. And little things that help carry those things to places far and even unseen. Little things, or should we say little spaces, where you live, work and play. And little things you keep in those spaces to sit, sleep, or just put things away. Locks, soaps, buildings and missiles. Well, there are quite a few. These are some of the little things we do. We are Godrej. That's us in ruby, green and blue. And this is a story of the little things we do. It started with a little thing we made to protect you and your things. Over 100 years on, we're still doing the same, except it now has wings. Little things that will take you places you can't get to on an airplane. And little things that circle the earth and tell our farmers when it'll rain. Little things that keep our animal friends hale and hearty. And little things that keep kids healthy and naughty. Little things that keep not just our homes, but even medicines and vaccines cool. And little things that rinse away dirt and allergens, so your little ones don't miss a day of school. Little things that make washing hands so much fun. And some that make your cars and homes smell like spring. Little things that keep diseases away. And some that make your hair shine and swing. Little things that help you make things, big, small, and everything in between. And little things that help carry those things to places far and even unseen. Little things, or should we say little spaces, where you live, work and play. And little things you keep in those spaces to sit, sleep, or just put things away. Locks, soaps, buildings and missiles. Well, there are quite a few. These are some of the little things we do.
Hello and welcome to Design Dekko Musings, a two-day digital conclave during which we will all discuss some of the pressing issues of the design industry. And we try to look at some of the issues from various vantage points. I'm your host, Supreet Sudhakaran. Before we begin, let me give you an idea about Design Dekko. Maybe you are here for the first time. Design Deco is an initiative by one of the India's most trusted and respected conglomerates, the Godrej Group. Started in 2019 as a platform for architects and interior design professionals, students, and enthusiasts, Design Deco today has become a community of over 24,000 members. Thank you all for making us strong. The single most objective of this platform is to help you, inspire you, to help you network, engage, and collaborate with your peers and your brands, which are in this space. Before we begin the day, for those who are here for the first time, here are some mandatory rules. One thing we learned during the pandemic was that we are relying too much on technology, and it can play the devil with absolutely no notice at all. So if there is any technical glitch, please bear with us. If for some reasons you get disconnected, or the screen fades, freezes, or doesn't come back, log off and log in back again. We are also trying to stream this live on Facebook, and as I mentioned, can be played by technology. We are facing a little bit of glitch, but we will be making up for that very soon. Nonetheless, the hashtag for the conclave is #DesignDecoMusing. You can tweet your comments, you can send us your feedbacks. If you have something special to tell us, please do that. Two basic rules for the webinar, which is always there. Always remain on mute and your camera switched off till the time it's your session, or if you have something very nice to add on. In case you want to say something, use the chat box or the Q&A section to ask your questions. If you want to know what's in store for today, the itinerary is already up on our website. But still, let me give you a glimpse of what's in store for you in these 2 days. Here is a small video which will give you that glimpse. We have our panels joining us now. But the day begins with the keynote, which will be followed by 2 power panels. So if you wish to raise a question during any of this session, there is a Q&A section, a tab down, where you can submit your question. We shall be taking only limited number of questions after the session due to the paucity of time. You can also upvote a question raised by another attendee here. So please make the most out of it. Questions which will be most upvoted will be sent to the panelists as well. The keynote address today is on the theme of future forward, looking inwards. The first keynote of the day was scheduled with Dr. Ken Yin, who is known as the father of sustainable architecture, one of the founding fathers. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, he could not join us. But he has, however, promised us to deliver the lecture exclusively for the attendees who are here for Musings at a later date. We'll keep you updated on when that is scheduled. So let's begin with our first keynote, which will be delivered by architect Rahul Qadri, who will be sharing his perspective on the subject future forward, looking inwards. May I please call Mr. Rahul Qadri to switch on his camera. Rahul is a partner and principal architect at IMK Architects, an architecture and urban design practice founded in 1957 with offices in Mumbai and Bangalore. With Qadri at its helm, IMK Architects transformed to focus its practice on social consciousness and urban ecological sensitivity. Qadri's work is widely acclaimed with multiple honors from IIA and most recently an Architect of the Year award from the Times Network. This session is powered by U&Us Home Design Studio and Godrej Properties. But let me welcome once again Architect Rahul Qadri, who will be presenting his keynote. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm going to be speaking basically on urban design and what we need to do going forward to make a world for us, cities for us that are healthier. There are three issues that I see really we need to work with. Density, mobility, and open spaces. These are the three things we need to focus on. Nothing really new about them. If you look at density, our cities are fairly dense. Mumbai, where I live, has an average density of 20,000 people per square kilometer. However, when people stay in slums, they actually stay in a density 10 times that. So the densest parts of Bombay have about 1 lakh people staying, which is the older, the British part of the city. That's got about 1 lakh, but a typical slum has 2 lakh people per square kilometer. So that is an issue we need to deal with going forward, because as we all very well know, over 50% of the people living in Mumbai and working in Mumbai live in a slum. Until we don't tackle, that for 50% of the population, nothing is really going to matter. What's the policies the government has had is the SRA, the Slum Rehabilitation Authority, which has unfortunately just not been successful because they are relying only on one mechanism to solve the problem, which is a developer. A developer providing housing which is free. So if you do the math, you'd realize that if we continue using this system, we won't be able to solve the problem in the next 300 years, judging from the percentage of, since 95 when the SRA authority was made, there's just only 5,000 slums, and we need 1 million slums to be redeveloped. So it's just a long way to go. So unless we come up with better mechanisms to solve this problem, and it really cannot be solved by the market, because if you're talking about selling and giving free housing, Mumbai, the average sales is only 60,000 houses a year. So, and that will support. So these are not all slum houses. About 10,000 are slum out of that. So it's only that number. Then even if the 10,000 supports double the number or 3 times the number, 30,000 is what you'll be able to build, which is not really the number we need, nowhere close to the number we need to build. So there needs to be other mechanisms to deal with density. We all know the problems of living in a slum and the density. There is no ventilation, there is no light. And the sad part is that even SRA schemes, because open spaces are so small, they found that people living on the lower floors of the SRA schemes have a 10% higher chance of getting TB, because there is no light and ventilation in their home. So the bottom 5-6 floors, you have a very high chance of getting TB because there's no light and ventilation in your home. So these new homes, which we are supposedly making and supposedly saying is the solution, is creating more health problems. So one is we need to deal with density. We need to deal with slums. Second, we all know we need to deal with mobility. Mumbai right now is paralyzed because our trains can't function. As an urban planner, what do we see as a solution for it? Obviously, cars are not the answer because the amount of space a car needs, you will have traffic jams. I mean, right now, 10% of the people travel by car, and if 10 goes to 12 or 15, what should take half an hour will take 3 hours for someone to reach. So that's not the answer either. Um, the only answer seems to be if we can begin to reconfigure the city. So if you're looking at reducing density, the government has a scheme of um, connecting Virar with Alibag. It's a loop outside and creating 6 new towns along that hub. So that's a great idea. So if you have a new arc which sucks people out, and then each of them, you develop them. So supposing you're developing a new IT hub, supposing you're developing a new Hinjavadi, don't have only offices. Have it mixed use. So if you're creating an industrial park, if you're creating a pharma park, if you're creating anything, make it mixed use. So it should be walk to work and walk to everything. Walking is relatively safe. You're distanced, I mean, as long as you're wearing a mask. So, and you require the least amount of space to walk. So if this notion of 15-minute cities or 15-minute neighborhoods where all your needs are met within a 15-meter walk is really ideal in so many levels. And that's something I think all of us need to embrace, because the most eco-friendly, most space-friendly, green solution you can have. Um, so newer towns and newer areas, we need to, even in the development plan, we need to have so that maybe, reconfigured neighborhoods to incentivize a balance of work, home, play, education, healthcare, markets. So these 5 need to have a balance. So most of your needs can be met in the neighborhood, and you don't necessarily, even if 50% of the people working and living are close by, that can work. By the way, there's a very interesting statistic that 50% of people in Mumbai actually walk to work. They don't. They don't take the train. They don't take a bus. Nothing. They walk to work. So, it's possible. If it's possible in Mumbai for 50% of the people, it's possible anywhere. So I think that's a mantra we need to use everywhere. This whole thing of land use and segregating land use is too passé. We should not be talking about it anymore. We should only be dealing with mixed use. And then we also need to deal with transects and transport-led developments, where there are metro stations and where there are stations, increase the FSI and then taper it off as you go out. The third is really open spaces, wherein we're not only talking about parks, we're talking about parks and promenades. We're talking about, in Mumbai, we have 75 kilometers of coastline. And if you count all the, spaces you can use on the coast, say, starting from the south, starting from Marine Drive, you go to Chopati Beach, go to Worli Sea Face, a little bit of stretch at Bandra Fort area, then you've got a little bit in Bandra, the promenade, then you've got Juhu Beach, and on the eastern side, you've actually got nothing. So out of the 75 kilometers, it's hardly 10 to 12 kilometers of the seafront, which we can actually use. And it's not very expensive to build a promenade or to have a promenade on stilts. Compared to the coastal road, where we're spending 12,500 crores for 2% of the population to use, spending 750 crores, we can really get promenades, all around, 75 kilometers of promenades. And that's where you get the fresh air. That's where you get the maximum openness, and lots can happen along there. The other focus I think we need to have is, how is our eastern waterfront going to be used? We have 1,800 acres of land on the eastern waterfront, which the previous government just gave away to the Mumbai Port Trust, said, you be the planning authority. So to Mumbaikars, that's really unfair. That we feel the development control rules and the city should have a say on how this land is used. Okay, this land has served us extremely well for shipping. It's not needed for shipping anymore. Navaseva is a much, much bigger port. Let's use this instead of Mumbai Port Trust, make it a Mumbai Revival Trust. Change that, the use of that trust to become a Mumbai Revival Trust. And 1,800 acres can be available for citizens to use on the eastern waterfront. So we need to see how we can recycle our spaces, reuse our spaces, and also look at time. There's been the Open Streets program in Bandra over the winter. On Sunday mornings, they close the road. Initiatives like that can happen in so many more places in the city, and why not? There's this landslide that happened on Hanging Gardens and Pedder Road, Hughes Road below, and that road has been closed now for the last 2 months. Earlier, it was unimaginable if the road were to close. What would happen to the traffic on Malabar Hill? How would people manage? The people seem to have managed extremely well. I mean, they're using Balkeshwar and Nepean Sea Road. And that stretch of land now between Hanging Gardens and Spenta Building has become an amazing promenade. I mean, all day you have people cycling, children cycling, people walking their dogs, people skating, all kinds of things. I mean, you've got parents with their little kids, showing them, training them how to cycle, etc. It's become a wonderful open space. And during pandemics, we know you need to be out, you need your vitamin D, you need spaces. So why can't we do more of this during the week, wherein we say Sunday mornings, every neighborhood, one road closes and citizens can come out and use that space. We can, every neighborhood can happen all over, right from Kulaba to Andheri. You can close one major road, 5 kilometers length, and use that open space. So these were the few thoughts I had on how we need to replan and rethink going forward. Looking at density, definitely looking at slums, looking at mobility, being able to walk to work, mixed use, open spaces. I think I'm done. Can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you for those refreshing thoughts. A couple of questions while we move to the next session. And before I ask you a couple of questions, guys, the session is open for questions. In case you want to send in your questions, you can type in the Q&A section and we will be taking up those questions. Okay. So why is that, public spaces or social spaces or looking at social design to solve issues is not something that is new, but yet every time we come across an issue, the thrust is always put upon on designers that what can design intervention do? What could architects do? It can't be done alone by the architects or designer. It has to be a, work in conjunction with multiple partners. Where are we failing, or what can be done better? What's your opinion on that?
Very good question. Because we do fail quite a lot here. Um, our um, our acts, so our Town Planning Act is a highly outdated act. It's a 1967 act. It needs to be updated. When we speak about reform, these are the kind of reforms we actually need. So Maharashtra Town Planning Act needs to be reformed. Because we only function on 10-year master plans. Um, Actually, having master plans is an outdated concept. It doesn't work. What instead we need, so we need to reform. So our legislators, our MLAs and our corporate, our MLAs more than anything else, need to change the laws which allows public participation and allows neighborhood development. So we need to have a law which says every neighborhood, every year has to come up with a scheme for improvement of or maybe a 5-year plan or a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan, whatever it is, has to come up with a plan on how to improve the neighborhood, and then certain amount of money allocated to it, and a process within the neighborhood. So it could be handled by the ward, or it could be handled by something smaller than the ward, because even the ward is fairly large, but a budget allocated for citizens to take up initiatives which need to be done, and that needs to kind of percolate. So we don't have a mechanism to do that. And that reform is needed. That law has to come to allow citizens to participate. Otherwise, we go begging, Sarji, Kardo, go to the ward office, you go here, you go there. If the CM is nice, he says, Are Karado. So that's not the way a democracy should work. There should be a mechanism which we don't have. So we need reforms in these sectors. And the bureaucrats will only follow what the law says. They say, right, process to yehi hai. And process mein hai hi nahi, so how does it fit? It doesn't fit. So that's where the problem comes. It comes in policy.
And my another question was, people have been, for the past 9 months, we have been hearing about the new normal setting in. This is the new normal. And then again, a week later, we'll again hear about now, this is the new normal. So in fact, it's very abnormal to hear new normal anymore. And people say this is not the new normal. The new normal perhaps would be when we actually open our villages, all the lockdown is lifted, people move, the labor will be back to the city, the migration issue will be sorted. And that's when you will see a lot of change, because 9 months brings in a lot of cultural and behavioral change in human. It's a different kind of life that we have been living. So according to you, what or how can we prepare for the said new normal, which will begin once everything is lifted? And what could be the changes that you expect from people in terms of designing structures or designing cities, even, going inwards to tier 2 and tier 3 cities?
Well, yeah, so that's, basically, I feel we need to very, very seriously look at public health, and integrate. So again, as far as our Maharashtra Town Planning Act or any of the town planning acts go, there is no integrated thinking of hygiene, mobility, housing, and health. These things are not integrated in the Planning Act, and there are no parameters, and there are no goals which have really been set. So unless there are very serious goals set for these four aspects, nothing will happen. It can't be a political promise. It has to be set as a law that you have to achieve these parameters in this much time. Um, so so I think we need, as architects, designers, concerned citizens, we have not understood how democracy works. And unless we grapple with democracy and our policies and laws, I know I'm talking more like a lawyer than an architect, but that is where change will happen. Because even if you file a case in the High Court, the court will say, Baba, this, but the law to hai nahi, you know. So even they can't do anything. You can't be helped. So unless our legislators move and reform, nothing will happen. You're mute.
Again. So we have two questions. One from Kamal Pandit. He says, with work from home becoming a norm, will it lead to corporates to have smaller offices? And would there be enhanced space available for dwellings?
See, I think it's a temporary thing that is work from home is happening so much, but it will change. I think people will work more hours from home, or that have the flexibility.
Mhm.
That will happen. Uses of an office will also change. There will be more meeting places. There will be more a place to meet, to strategize, to work together on a project. And then it's like when you need to work together, you come there. And when you don't, you go back home. When you're to doing your own work, you work from home. But when you need to do collaborative work, you come to the office. Um, Having said that, and if we know, see, even in the service sector, um, in India, owning a house or having a house or renting the house is really expensive. You know, so having additional space in your house, being able to afford additional space is very difficult. And in Mumbai, 3 generations live in one house. So it's very difficult for most of the population to work from home. Not an easy thing. So I think people do want to come back to work. It's the mobility issue that we need to sort out. I have an architect friend who's actually given 6 months notice to most of his staff and saying, I will only hire from 2 kilometers around me, people who live 2 kilometers around me and who can walk to work. So he's actually doing that. He's saying, you know, this this is going to be my limit, 2 kilometers, and you can either cycle or walk, and you don't have to depend on public transportation. So maybe things like that will also happen. But yeah, I think there will be more of a demand for it. But what's really going to happen is people are going to be able to live outside of a city more. People have realized when you don't go to the office, you can actually be anywhere. So you can be living in Alibag. So right now we have people working in our office, living in Lucknow, living in Moradabad, living in Pune, living in Bangalore. Um, so, you can be living in a farmhouse anywhere as long as you got internet. You can be living on a beach anywhere as long as you got the internet. So actually sales of houses in Goa and Alibag and, or hill stations, etc., going through the roof, because that is what, and also it'll be much more affordable to be able to live there. Getting Wi-Fi is not so expensive. So living outside and then commuting a few days a week, if you don't have to come every day, works. So I think the dynamic of a city is going to change in that sense. And the hinterland is going to develop much more in that sense. With the Trans Harbour link coming up, I think many more people would prefer to live on the mainland and commute to Bombay once in a while. So mobility is changing and Wi-Fi is changing things.
Okay. And our final question is from Roshan Talera, who says, what are your views on HCP's plan for redevelopment of Mumbai Port Trust land? You have a comment there.
Yeah. See, my feeling there is that they have not followed the correct process. So as I mentioned before, the state government gave away its rights and said, Mumbai Port Trust, we give you all the rights to do whatever you want. So that in itself is ridiculous. Why should the city give away its rights? Right?
Yeah.
It should be part of the master plan of the city. So why did Fadnavis, what motivated him to give the rights to a corporation? We don't know. Then the second, so out of that decision arose that now it was only the priorities of the Mumbai Port Trust. Mumbai Port Trust said, Acha, we don't have to talk to anybody, we don't have to do anything, we can do whatever we feel like. So let's develop this commercially for its highest commercial value. And they told Bimal, this is your brief, this is what you should do. So Bimal has come up with a plan which creates the highest commercial value for the land, which Mumbai doesn't need, Mumbaikars don't need, but Port Trust wants it. So you can't blame Bimal. Bichara, he's only an architect or a planner. Uski kya dosh hai? The dosh is of the government. So you need to go back and see, what is your client telling you? Who is your client? If the client was Mumbaikars, then we could demand things. But we are not the client anymore. We gave away our right. So we have to be careful who we vote for also. गलत वोट दोगे तो गलत ही होगा. Sorry.
No, that's being very candid and no issues. Thank you, Rahul. And it was really interesting to listen to you. I could go on and on, but I understand that we have a certain time limit to follow. But
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Lovely to be. Thank you. Lovely to be here. Bye.
Before we move on to the first power panel, powered by Godrej Construction and Godrej Interior, here is what Johannes Thorpe, founder of Johannes Thorpe Studio, had to say about the theme of our first power panel session, which is social design. Can we have the video, please?
I mean, social change is an interesting topic. I come from a tiny country in Scandinavia called Denmark, which I describe typically like the butterhole of the world because it's such a nice little place to be. If you imagine you have like a ball of soft warmed butter and everybody's down that butter and it's just like, oh, this is so nice to be here. We don't have big challenges in the social perspective. I mean, all countries have, but comparatively to many other great nations, we have a very limited sample size of people who have social challenge. So we are also the exemplification of a country that is not really in need of help when it comes to that. But at the same time, we are also a country that has a very gender equal society form. So women and men are treated the same way. As far as possible in a society that is modern, right? And also the schools are very high ranking. We have a social security system that allows you to go to the doctor whenever you want for free. You go to the university, you even get a monthly salary to go to university. Think about that. So our whole welfare system is built up like that it sounds like almost impossible to many other countries, such as America, where I am at present in California, where you certainly do not get anything for free. You have to pay your way. The difference between these kind of societies is that, in Denmark, we don't have the hunger because we are constantly fed with, if we're hungry, we get food. If we are hungry for learning, we get a fee, a salary to go to university. If you want a job, it's very easy to get one because we have, a very secure system. Where in America, if you are hungry, you have to find a way to feed yourself. If you want to learn something, you have to find a way to pay to get in to learn something. And it's a very different way of looking at life. And it's also a different way to look at how socially a society is put together. And I think where I come from, we kind of have the norm of putting things in boxes. to the extent that you are expected to go, to school, go to high school, go to university, serve the country because the country has paid for your education. The thing is, the big difference is that when you don't have the hunger, then you might not actually do great things in the world. So to my perspective, it's extremely important that any country still cultivates its youth to be hungry to do a difference. And in a world of social, social design as well, how we are making our society socially put together, we still need to allow for hunger. But the hunger shouldn't be hunger that you cannot, eat or that you cannot learn, because learning is by far the most important thing we can do in life to actually conquer the world and do something great. So even I come from a very secure country, that's my point. People are not hungry. People are well fed, so they're like, if I lean back and do like this, fall back, somebody's going to catch me. And you know how it is in India. If you fall back, probably not that many people are going to catch you. And in America, certainly no people are going to catch you. And you think about that, our responsibilities as designers and architects is also, at this given point in time, is to help cultivate the world with a better social design. Because our responsibility is not only to do, a nice decor or great building that can bear our name, for 200 years as our egos as creatives. No, our responsibility is actually to go out and help the governments and the people in charge that we are electing, some countries at least, to control the society, help them build a better society. That is real social design, and that's where we have to start from, in my point of view. We are probably going to be the ancestors of the egos, where we have been not looking too much about, for many architects, you can say, they have been marking the world with big superstructures that are super advanced and so on, but which are by far, most of them, terrible social spaces. Because what they do best is to say, oh, that's a Zaha Hadid building, and that is a Norman Foster building, et cetera, where instead of looking at what the building does for you in relation to the human being, it's just a big structure that shows the ego. It's almost like a phallic symbol more than is actually a nice place to be. And I think what we're going to be known as is a bunch of egocentric architects and designers who thought more about how people would remember us than how we would make an impact on people and giving them a better quality of life. It's actually a shame to say it, but I really do think that is the fantastic opportunity. I mean, I'm an optimist. I've always been, maybe not optimist, because optimists also are a bit naive. Maybe I'm more a positive person. So I believe on something positive have to happen, even based on a big crisis, right? And I think we need to simply find out where in this time of crisis we can prosper. What can we learn from it? What can we do better? And I think India, which is a country that I admire and love, I've been there many times. I mean, you have so much to give the world, and the world has not seen even the top of the iceberg yet. Well, not iceberg, it would not be, but the top of the mountain yet. It is simply a question of time when you are gonna prosper your beauty to the world. And I think what is interesting here is that you have such a great amount of people that can do this, but it all starts with education. It all starts with maybe one thing is the government, but another thing is also the companies. The responsibility of the companies, how they are helping people become more creative, how they are helping people become more educated, how they're helping people, spread the energy and the ideas to the world. And you have so much to give.
And the full version of this video will be available soon on our IGTV. Hope you will like that. As promised, we have an interesting lineup with whom we would be discussing the subject of social design and what it means to them. For that, may I please invite our first panelist, Gunmeet Singh Chauhan. He is founder partner at Design Forum International, author in the Tonomics, Switch on your camera, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gunmeet
Good evening.
is an urbanist, architect, and has recently published a book, Invertonomics, which was published by HarperCollins India. And in that, he proposes 8 social issues which can be solved through design intervention and, of course, many other intelligent ways of using technology as well. And these were social inequity, air pollution, sanitation, women's safety, education, and, of course, rural economy. Joining him is Chakravarti Rajamani, who is fondly called as Chucks. He's the Director of Strategic Growth and Excellence at Ixora Corporate Services. Ixora has taken up the challenge to solve the issue of public sanitation by creating luxury bio-public washrooms called Loo Cafe. These come with free-to-use toilets, an ATM, an attached cafe, and a tech-enabled trust on cleanliness and feedback. Starting in 2017, with a major footprint in the state of Telangana, today there are over 300 Loo cafes running successfully across the country. Can I have Chakravarti please switch on his camera as well?
And there, Sudeep. Hi, everyone. Looking forward for this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, but I think we have, can we also see him? Okay. Next up on the panel is Sudan Shah. He's the founder director of Access for All. He's a TEDx speaker, universal design expert, and an educationist specializing in bridging the gap between disability and cultural heritage. He has worked with numerous corporates, jails, schools, special education institutions, museums, art festivals, galleries, and much more. He also teaches and lectures on the inclusive design and all the things that intersect with experiential learning. Welcome, Siddhant.
Hi.
Hi. And completing the panel is David Schwarz. He's the founding partner of Hush. David is an award-winning creative leader, and he's joining us today from Milan. He spent over a decade working with brands to concept and design compelling experiences around content, interactivity, architecture, and technology. And some of the brands that he has worked with are Uber, Google, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Nike, and many more. Welcome, David.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hello. And with that, we have the whole panel here, and I will be moderating it. So my first question, David, is up to you. How one defines social design is linked to often the cultural, geographical, and the disciplinary vantage point from one sees it. So what is your definition of social design? How do you define it?
That's a great question. I think when we think about social design, we think about the word social and its relationship to people. In any way, design doesn't exist really without an audience. So at our firm, I think we look at it very specifically and maybe a little bit more narrowly than the broad context of social design. And we think about how experiences that we make using architecture and technology and information and placemaking and program, how we put that all together in a multi-sensory package that compels people, the social part, to feel or understand things in ways that they never have before. And those things should be driving towards positive impacts in the built environment and on society in general. I would say a note is, though, when we try to take on ideas of social design, I think we feel not burdened by the necessity to necessarily impact broad change, but we look at it as within what scale can we accomplish. Perhaps it's the scale of a building where we can think about how people have to rethink the way they work every day and what they feel like every day and how they can collaborate better. Of course, it could be at the scale of urban design and architecture and city, but we also think about it down to the group level of maybe the amount of people on this Zoom conference right now. So I think the idea of social design is quite elastic. We're just trying to use all the tools of designers across all the senses to really impact some kind of change in feeling and perception and emotion. That's our sort of lens on the idea.
Yeah, that's nice. And one thing which I feel that, David, since the start of 2020, people have been saying that we have opened the Pandora box. Somewhere it's not going right. Every now and then you hear some sort of calamity or some sort of issue. But it has also awakened a certain sense of responsibility towards environment. How can design influence eco-social change? How can we design for the good?
Well, I actually think the awareness that's been created in 2020 and before, but I would say has gotten quite steep in 2020, is a wonderful thing. Things about our environment, about sustainability, about how things are made, where things come from, the materials we use, what happens after we use things, 360 design. These things are becoming more commonplace in the world and in communication. And so it's less difficult to have the conversation and less difficult to make it a norm. So in that way, for good or worse, it's becoming part of our language. And that usually helps advance design in that context. What I think is interesting, and this might be challenging to some folks on the call, is makers, architects, people that create things in the world have always had an innate responsibility to do it right and to do it fairly. I think Johannes Prior was saying, architecture is filled with stars who want to leave marks, and those marks may not be good for the world over decades or centuries. They might be egotistical and centric. The flip side is, I find that architects and architecture and the builders of our cities, we are incredibly thoughtful in the way we approach projects. It's almost built into the DNA of how you're taught and how you think about the subject. But I kind of think we're our best kept secret. You walk around cities in this world, you enter buildings in this world, and all the potential around sustainability and energy are invisible to the average person. So all the work and effort and funding and financing and thought into the complexity of how these things work for good are invisible to 99% of the world. And so in a way, I think one of our missions at our company, at our agency, is to figure out how the built environment can communicate better with you and me and the average person, so we can all understand what's happening and move towards something better in the future and towards better design. If the built environment stays mute, no one knows and no one discusses these subject matter. So I think, yes, sustainability and environmentalism is now on the tip of everyone's tongue. It's architecture's purpose to help incentivize that dialogue and help people understand that better. Oop, I think you need to unmute, Sprith.
Gurmeet, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. So I'll move to Gurmeet. I read the book Economics and we had a long chat then. And if I recall right, you mentioned there were 100 social issues which you were trying to solve. And then you brought it down, put it down to 8 of, core issues. So if you could let us know, what was your perspective when you, wrote that book, and what prompted you to write that book? That's one part of the question. And the second part is, how do you propose this system work? Because people who have not read your book might need a quick, glance through your idea.
Sure. So the book is called Inverternomics, and essentially it is a book of ideas that solves real problems that we face in our cities and our villages. And, like Rahul said, that he was speaking more like a lawyer or a legislator than an architect. But the truth is, once you've worked for a certain number of years, you understand that it's all interwoven, and that unless there is legislation that supports, unless the whole environment is enabling, design cannot sort of exist in a vacuum. And also what David mentioned about the built environment communicating with people so they actually are able to understand. So the whole purpose of this book really was to create an enabling environment where design could actually be able to begin to make social change. So the book actually has a lot of legislations and it takes an ecosystem approach. So if one was to look purely at the Indian context, our demographic is so diverse that the moment you want to create a change, for instance, let's say you want to impact the quotient of safety in our cities and walkability. Now, how do you communicate that to a population which is so very diverse? So the book looks at creating a common platform. And, while we're a democracy, and somebody mentioned that he lives in Denmark and that it's a country which sort of provides many things, we are living in a capitalist world where money is the universal currency. So invertonomics looks at linking design and money together using technology. So you look at platforms which have combined money and technology like Uber, and they've succeeded globally, or Amazon. So I have used that learning to create an ecosystem, to imagine an ecosystem which looks at money and technology to alter individual behavior towards collective good. So let me share with you the real problems that we've solved. So they start with honking, and why it starts with honking is because it's a very simple sort of explanation that using technology, every time you honk, you'll be charged a rupee, and that would actually, your honk bill, as it were, would come on your mobile phone. And you would get a weekly and a monthly statement. It'll be very convenient, like a blood test report, which is individual. It also acts like a surrogate tutor. So somebody mentioned about education. So it's like an individual communication to every person that you are in the bottom list in terms of honkers, which means you're actually a great citizen, or you honk too much, in which case they might, in a very positive, affirmative manner, send you a message saying, you tend to honk more in the mornings. Would you like us to schedule a wake-up call for you? So, design of that whole apparatus, therefore, looks at how an individual and a society is likely to behave, and using that intelligence to actually alter. Now, we've also used the same methodology to solve problems like air pollution, traffic, and in India, it tends to be very, very chaotic, safety, toilets. I was really amazed to see Loo Cafe there. This is an idea I tabled way back in 2007, implemented very successfully in Delhi, and I'm amazed he's reached 300 already. The book imagines building 14 lakh toilet complexes along with cafes, also looking at putting the informal sector, because the design must also look at the formal and the informal. We all have a shared destiny, and unless all of us rise together, the real change is not going to happen. So how informal sector artists and all those people can be part of this toilet project, which he's really found a beautiful name, the Loo Cafe. Then we've looked at safety, just like the green building movement was able to create some sort of way to measure the performance of a building. And then it is published, so everybody knows that this is a building that's platinum, and therefore you have tenants who are willing to pay more rent. There is an economics associated with investment in sustainability. Likewise, the book proposes that we link safety to economics in terms of the property tax you pay, in terms of publishing your safety score on a website. So if somebody is to buy real estate in an area, he would know that you are a 8 on 10 or a 5 on 10, and therefore real estate prices would become a function of safety. And by a safer environment, essentially, it would mean a place which is more walkable, a place which is better lit, where the walk from your house to the bus stop or the market has a contiguous footpath, where the ratio of cops is to the population is of an acceptable number, where the cop actually knows which family lives in this house, and there is some way that the citizen and the governance ecosystem interacts. And it is published transparently at some sort of a platform. So it imagines legislation around creating a safety council. It imagines the publishing of safety scores, linking it to property taxes. And therefore, like Rahul said, there needs to be a law that every year you need to invest money to upgrade. Here, every year you would get a rating. And so therefore you could say, well, we are going to invest in walkability in our colony. And because out of 1,500 homes, we will save 2,000 or 5,000 each on a year. We therefore, over a period of 5 years, have, let's say, 2 crores to invest. And therefore, that money will become available. Money, therefore, so social design has to look at not just design in isolation, but social behavior, cultural preferences, and also how the capital will be made available and spent intelligently. Very often, government has capital, but it spends it very unintelligently, building gates and boundary walls, which really don't make an impact. So then the book goes on to addressing core social issues like equity. What is it that we can do to impact the quotient of equity in terms of gender equity, in terms of providing education to a child born in an underprivileged background? And luckily now the government has responded so beautifully to it that the Delhi government is considering making a residential hostel for 2,000 children. And this is where street urchins and children who are currently scavenging in garbage bins would actually come and in a nice healing environment, live, grow, and then find education and empowerment. Also, we've looked at the farm sector. What is it that we can do to empower the villages? You know, Rahul mentioned about density, and it's really a key issue. I mean, good design is only possible in a sort of sustainable density. So when we empower our villages and give them money in their hands and give primary, secondary, and tertiary jobs in the villages, the pressure to migrate will reduce. And then mobility. What is it that we can do to clear linear corridors of growth as opposed to concentric not corridors, sort of concentric magnets? So this is what the book really talks about. It's a fairly wide canvas, and it links economics and design together.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I'll go to Chakravarti at Lou Cafe. They have tried and actually succeeded, which I call, solving the stinking issue of public sanitation. And it's a very risky business to, take up, and a challenge as well, because it involves a lot of behavioral change, a social change, and it has a certain taboo attached. In India, you can't have a kitchen or something that you eat very close to the washrooms. And this is entirely, challenging that design concept. So Chakrabarti, tell us how challenging was this for the Lou Cafe team 2.0? What is special about it, and where are you on this project now?
Thanks, Supreet. It has been, sanitation in India has been the best in terms of design or an architecture from way back from the Indus Valley civilization. But we were the pioneers in sanitation, pipe the sanitation, or your sewage systems right from the Indus Valley civilization. But what happened during the entire growth of human mankind is we had lost our sense of sanitation. In the meanwhile, during industrialization, urbanization, and rural development and urban development, what has happened? It become a challenge for the growing urban population. See, Lou Cafe has been a concept where we have got this entire concept where we have built this entire sustainable washrooms, because in India the issue of washrooms always has been an issue where government spends crores and crores of rupees in terms of sanitation, for public sanitation. But what happens is the sustainability always has been an issue. While we were brainstorming the entire where we used to manage buildings like your Godrej, for example, BKC. Then you have Kotak and malls also, where we said when we can give sanitation to people on a scale of scale in the corporate offices, why not a public washroom? That's where we went into a deep study, at least 2.5 years of study, where we found 90% of the washrooms are not usable by the upper middle class and the middle class, even the women and the elderly. So we thought, why not we provide them a washroom which is to the standards? Then when we took up some trials for this washroom, the sustainability became the big issue. We have models like Schwarz, Sulab, going into 40 years of sanitation, but the improvement in public washrooms has not been the greatest. With the wave of Swachh Bharat riding in, and nowadays Atmanirbhar running in, we wanted to scale up to a level where even if we have to give an employment to somebody, we make a sustainable washroom as a model for them and give them a washroom to be managed. As per you mentioned, the taboo of having a kitchen near your cafe. That's where the challenge is all about. See, any washroom, any cafe you go, Starbucks or the cafe coffee day, or anywhere you go, you always have a washroom in the cafe. So it's not a new concept. Rather, we say we are proud to have it in the name itself, where we say loo first and the cafe next. So that's the challenge which we always had. But trust me, it has been a journey where the learnings have been more. Right, Mr. Chauhan was mentioning that 300 plus washrooms has been mentioned. What we wanted to do is we make washrooms which are sustainable. The entire sustainability comes from operating a cafe. You have some ad space, and then we have places where you can treat your rental out also. So that becomes a smaller business unit from this. The scalability of business comes where once you prove the existing business model, this can become a tuck shop. The Lou Cafe always wanted to be a next door chai shop where you make a business. We make chai business out of 8-10,000. That's basic of Indian market. You sell a pakoda, you will sell a chai, you make at least 8 to 10,000. And this comes as a behavioral change, as you said. Any cleaner places always attracts people who are cleaner. And when you see a clean place, you don't even try to make that place messy. The last time when anybody could have visited a public washroom, might have said it's a stinking place, but the challenge comes from there. Once we have a cafe setup, once your revenues are coming in from the place where you have a loo, then you automatically make your washrooms cleaner and sanitized rather. That's the first challenge. I think you're on mute.
Let me ask you something that, so have you seen that there is a behavioral change when people visit a Lou Cafe versus?
Yeah, true. See, the behavioral change, that's what I said. Once you go to a place where it is already shady, you tend to spit, you tend
Contribute.
to contribute more towards its ugliness rather, cleanliness rather. But trust me, once we started introducing this concept in the high footfall areas, where people we have technologies, as you mentioned. We have technologies where we monitor the footfalls, we monitor the stink and the stink levels in a washroom. People always we use waterless urinals where you don't have water to be used. But trust me, people don't spit in it. You don't have to put a notice board where you say you don't chew tobacco or a thing. When we enter a cleaner place, people tend to use it cleaner. That's the behavioral change. But once you see a cleaner place as a woman, you feel safe, you feel hygienic environment, you tend to reuse it. 70% or 80% of the users of Lou Cafe has always been women, where they contribute. They feel Lou Cafe as a safe environment where they can use it, and they become a repeat customer. As such, we don't. It's a free-to-use washroom, so there is no compulsion of buying something or spending something on a cafe. So you just walk in and just.
But people eventually do.
Yeah,
But people eventually.
very true. See, it's like the items which we sell or the cafe which runs is like below 30, so anybody can walk in, have a small bite, use the washroom. It's just not a washroom and a cafe. We make the environment more greener. We have around 80 to 90 square feet of vertical gardens attached to the washroom. And these are, as a design concept, these are prefab washrooms made out of shipping containers. See, as such, cities have issue about road widening or civil infrastructure to be added. So whenever they want to widen up the roads, we just hook the cafe and take it to another place. So there is no damage which happens to the structure, and it's easily plug and play model where we do it.
Let me bring on Siddhant on this now. Siddhant, you have been speaking about accessible building, and it's something that should have been done long time back. It's a huge chunk of our population, and it's a no-brainer. But where are we stuck? What is this impediment to not make our buildings accessible and requiring a regulation to do that, perhaps?
I think this goes at various levels. I would say that the first thing is that one idea that it struck to me later, like it's an afterthought after starting Access for All and running it for 6.5 years now, is that the concept of if it doesn't affect me, it doesn't matter to me. And I think accessibility falls very strong in that category. I would now I can say that, like, coming from a typical Gujarati background, I would have never got into that. My family would be like, धंधा करो, builder के साथ काम करो, architect बनाया है. You want to get into the space of heritage, that was a shock for them. Then again getting into the space of disability, and all that happened because my mother acquired visual impairment when I was in my third year of architecture. It was that time when I had a module on universal design. I was eagerly looking forward to it. And that module just went in 1 month like that. And all we learned was three things: accessible parking, accessible toilet, accessible ramp, everything for wheelchair. Nothing, not talking about invisible disability, forget cognitive disability, forget neurodiversity. Only thing that if it's a disability, it has to be around a ramp and a wheelchair. And I think that is where the problem is. And I think it starts there in the education, that people use the concept of inclusive design, accessible design in architectural thesis also as a social, it's a topic in your thesis to get good marks. Oh, the student is very proactive in social spaces, wants to think about people at large. Let me sprinkle with some ramps, let me sprinkle it with some wheelchair accessible toilets. That's it. Is that it? We are the world's capital for blindness. Damn it. Like you go to any place, there is no braille signage. You have braille, it is indented, it is broken. People want to fidget with what is happening on that. People don't even know how to put the braille in the right way. I entered the corporate building that I was auditing, and all the braille numbers were upside down because they did not know how to put the braille labels. So I think the thing goes is that in India, we look at disability from 2 points. One is either we look at it as an activist view where we want to really talk about why is this not happening, why is this not happening, and the other side is a charity view. Let me donate some money, let me help them. It is not balancing, and I think that is where the bridge that Access for All became, and the concept of understanding that you need someone to think through as a design process what is required, what kind of ramps are required. If you go on my Instagram, like, yes, like it's Shah Siddhant, where you will realize I put up a picture of a ramp that has been created by BMC in Bombay. That is a step ramp, that is literally a ramp that has a step in between. You cannot create a step ramp like that. The concept only of accessibility, inclusion does not exist. It happens in places where suddenly they realize that, oh, this BMC officer, he is on a wheelchair, let us put a ramp for them. The Bombay High Court, like, correct, like we did not have ramp for such a long time. What, like, people with disabilities don't fight cases. There are no lawyers with disabilities. There are people who are witnesses and they are persons with challenges. Forget that. That is only the one that are visual. Invisible disability is nothing. People do not want to even talk about that. Like, theek hai. When we started working with museums, art galleries, I studied in Greece, and it was one of the best experiences to realize that the Acropolis was wheelchair accessible. You could reach right up to that point on the Acropolis, beautifully concealed. You do not affect any universal values of a heritage site. You do not need steel ramps thrown across like we have in Taj Mahal. Thanks to Steven Spielberg, who came to India and we got our ramps in Qutub Minar and Taj Mahal. Otherwise, like it is, and I think it is at that point where people are not even asking because nahi hoga to hum nahi jayenge. Like because things will not be there, we will not go. And that really got us also to get into the space of accessibility to the design perspective. And one thing that I've been trying to do is like I even design curriculums working with various different design colleges to understand that inclusive design needs to be taught in school. You need to make sure that the 7 principles of design is used by everyone. It is, and I always give one simple example that what is the power of design. And I personally feel the power of design is to change the attitude, right? Like this simple thing that I'm holding in my hand right now. This is one of the best examples. Today, nobody who's wearing a spec is called a person with disability because we've made it popular. It's become part of popular design. People who don't even need it wear that to either look nerdy, to look cute, to have that stature. Do you see people going around on a wheelchair? Like, chalo, let's go on a ride on a wheelchair. Do you see people just wearing a hearing aid? We've stopped at the practicality of it. We've kept it like an equipment and not gone beyond that. So design and the concept, that even though design needs to be an obvious, it is still an option at a lot of spaces. I'm starting only at the main point where it should all begin. Lot of architects here, a lot of designers here, particularly. Just remember, at which year in architecture did you learn about the ramp? What we only know about the ramp. What is the braille height? What is the requirement for? How can you beautifully modulate light in the space for those who lip read? How do you use the colors in the space for corporate space, for public buildings, for those with neurodiversity, for persons with autism? So various elements of design can be brought in, but we are still stuck to that. If it is visible, then only it is a disability. But otherwise, जैसा है वैसे
It's
जाने दो.
not.
Let it
And
show.
I agree with you. There was one of the sessions where we were participating, and one of the keynote speaker was visually challenged. And despite having an elaborate introduction to the panelist and his background, he said, "How many of you feel that you can see me and I can see you?" And he walked somewhere close to the edge of the stage, and people actually put their hands up, and they said, "Yes, we can see you, we can hear you," without realizing that the person in front of you is actually testing you. Why is that? There is this sensibility is not built into, forget about design, it's not even built into the society. There is comedian, famous comedian in India, who said, "I was colorblind and I never knew it's a disability till the time I was grown up, and even when I mentioned it to my friends, they said, it's not a disability enough for me." So there is a certain sensibility too, which is there. But let me come to David there before I come to you, Siddhant. David, one challenge which I see here is that the curriculum which is taught in colleges, or even the kind of education that we impart to students, are not updated along with the time. It's just some things that you have to do in blocks and pieces, and then you complete it, and the rest of the things you can learn from your job on the go. How can we solve this issue, and what's your opinion on this? Do you see the same sensibilities and cultural issues with respect to design at your space, at your place?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's I can only speak from, I think, my part of the world, where I understand the institutional system a little bit better. I can tell you that it's one of the primary opportunities, but also primary challenges in terms of creating equitable information and equitable talent pool. Academic and professional world have always had this interesting kind of commingling, right? The academic world is supposed to prepare people with process and ways of thinking to tackle problems in the real world. Often the teaching is far too particular and minute and technical to be able to then step into the world in which the problems aren't so clear and binary. So that's one part. The other thing that also happens is sometimes the curriculum actually does lean in and take on some amazingly broad challenges and gets people to think about, about ideas that are far beyond craftsmanship or the detailed and technical requirements to work in design in some way. I think what happens, though, is the link between the system of the academic world and the professional world is sort of broken, because at least in the US, and this was talked about a little earlier today, is there's such a financial burden that comes out of the academic world that isn't delivered on in the professional world in terms of making up the investment in academia that you can then make up in the professional world. And so you're laden with a lot of debt, frankly, and the debt often prevents people from thinking expansively about what they can do with their newfound knowledge. And so instead, they become a cog in a much bigger machine. They take a job that allows them to get paid and do something technical, but doesn't give a whole lot of bandwidth to think about these larger problems and challenges. So it's a financial problem and a mechanism that doesn't really work. The investment doesn't necessarily equal the reward instantly. And then secondly, I think there's a little bit of abstract thinking. I don't think there's enough professionals involved in academia in a true way. I think we go back and teach and do critiques and help people think, but truthfully, after that, there's very little real pull through of those people into the world of design in which they can continue thinking in broad and flexible ways. So it's a systemic problem. I don't think it really is based on a particular school. I think it happens in quite a bit of the industry, and frankly, as a business owner, I also see the challenge, right? Which is you want to bring young people with a lot of appetite and hunger to apply their skills into your organization, but it's also difficult to bring someone young without a lot of experience and put them into spaces where anything's possible. And so I'm not actually sure what the solve is, but I think more participating from professionals in the academic world and also more academic thinkers being real in the professional world with placements and internships and just moving more upstream into government or business, it helps create an empathy between the two parties in which you really understand where the shared value is. I think that's kind of our point of view.
Siddhant, you were going to add something onto this. Okay, so yes, Siddhant is back.
Hi.
Yes,
so so your question about where we lack that social understanding of empathy. And I think what David was also saying, I think even we have to go below architecture college, we have to go to a normal schools. We have, like, even though if the school calls themselves inclusive school, they would have a separate classroom for persons or children with disability. Now you can't call yourself an inclusive school where you're segregating in the name of inclusive. So that is where the whole understanding begins, that those are different students and they need to be catered differently. But yet there are beautiful schools that we have in our country that are bridging that gap, putting children together. And I think that is when you start working with each other, you start participating, you start collaborating, you start realizing that everybody has a separate need. And then let's understand, let's figure out a way to get that need. If we can't do it right now, maybe later. But if it starts at that level, like, tell me how many of us have friends with disabilities that we had in school, right? And why do we have to, as schools, still go to a school for persons with disability for that one social work class to teach kids about empathy? At that level, if you keep them together, and I think when they grow, it is, and the answer I always find is in a fire extinguisher. It's a very beautiful note that once I read on a fire extinguisher that said that even a small fire extinguisher has a high power to put off a fire if you put it right on the source. So if you put it at the point where the fire is and not on the smoke up there, it will help that. And I think that point is a school where we need to get into. As Access for All, we've started, we do sensitization programs various types of initiative to get them to realize that empathy begins at that level. And that is when you have that, you would not then need a diversity and inclusion department in a corporate office where one has to go and train a 40, 50-year-old gentleman who's heading that, or go into CSR policies and tell them that, hello, you need to have facilities in those places. It would become that that person already is empathetic enough to have employees with special needs. So with that experience, we realize that we do a lot of CSR and other training, inclusion training activities with corporates to understand that sometimes I feel I'm just giving out common sense, but why is it so uncommon? They're like, oh, we didn't think about this. We didn't think about it really. Like, so that is where I think your answer is about.
Let me take that question to Gunmeet, and let me ask him. Common sense is the least. Is what Siddhant is arguing, and why aren't we doing this? When we did the interaction, we spoke about it. One about sensitivity and knowledge. Another thing is about incentivizing a behavior or maybe penalizing. You argue for both in your book. You say for some places it's better if you incentivize, and other places you need to penalize people. Where do you draw the line, and how do you come to the conclusion that here is where I penalize and here is where I need to incentivize?
I feel that everybody wants to contribute positively in general. I mean, one would say that 80, 90%. And most people don't realize that they might be being insensitive to somebody, or they might be violating some social etiquette like honking or not driving in the proper lane or driving slow in the fast lane. You know, a lot of people drive slow in the fast lane, causing a lot of issues. So it could be an act of ignorance, it could be deliberate, but most people, I feel, when it comes to social behavior, would want to improve. So if you can inform them individually, then it doesn't come in the way, the reaction is not based on ego. However, if you actually call out somebody publicly and say that, you know, you violated this and therefore you need to be punished, he's not going to learn from it. But if the message is sent individually in a non-invasive, technology-based manner, then whether it is a disincentive, and it should be monetary. I feel monetary disincentives are least sort of likely to invite an angry ire, as opposed to other forms of punishment. And equally, to build a positive momentum, incentives are very, very important, because the transformational journey is also going to be long and sustainable. In the beginning, you might have more non-compliant people, and therefore you need to sort of disincentivize. However, as people become more and more compliant, they might become lax. So if you look at pollution today, there is only a disincentive. There is no incentive to get your car checked for pollution. You might be somebody who's very, very prudent, using the right fuels. You don't drive a diesel car. You're ensuring that you do all the right things. Where is the incentive? There is none. So it therefore discourages a lot of people from doing it. Again, going back to the point David made about communication. So I think a combination of incentives and disincentives is extremely important. In the initial period, disincentives prove to be more helpful. As the general mass of the society move towards a higher compliance, then incentives tend to help you sustain that tempo. So I think that is the...
So my last round of questions before we can, guys, the Q&A section is open, and in case you have questions, you can send it to people. My question to each one of the panelists before we move on to take if there are Q&A from the audience: what is one social design that, you know, inspires you, or that you have seen, which you feel is really good? It can be from here or somewhere that you see, your work or somebody else's. I'll start with David. David?
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hi. One social design that you have seen and you feel that it inspires you. It can be anywhere around the world, which you feel people should see, and it's a good model.
Well, I think rather than make it an iconic representation that everyone can go see or Google, I think I can take it down to a very hyper-local and incredibly now example. With the pandemic, I've watched New York, my home city, transform in incredibly innovative and improvisational ways. And this is actually social design, not engineered by architects or designers or theorists or practitioners. It's actually social design designed by society in real time. And what's happening is, you know, New York's always been a focus of urban planning and thoughtfulness around organization, but also the constrictions that happen in the way that the city is organized. For decades, there's been plans about how pedestrians and traffic and transportation and retail and public institution all intersect in a sort of very balanced way. Proposals to almost take back the city from automobiles to actually make it more of a human scale city, not a car auto speed city. And those things have been stymied time and time again because of all the reasons that cities are difficult to create change in through government and laws and lobbyists. But what's happened now is all the rules have been relaxed, and I'm watching New York and its boroughs transform in the way that actually were once designed by the practitioners, but are being done by the hands of people on the ground in their own neighborhood. So this phenomenon is now a space where the city and buildings and people and the experiences we have on the ground for joy, for safety, for interaction, for community, are taking back the spaces in our city that were once basically the focus of the automobile and the impact of the automobile. So I think this is just like a beautiful phenomenon that I hope actually remains. And the improvisational design actually just becomes the design. And we know there's history and a lot of case study and how that's actually happened in the past. In this case, it's not for bad. It's actually for quite good.
Good. I'll go to Lou Cafe and ask them, what is one design apart from yours that you feel has been contributing to the industry?
On a lighter note, when the COVID incident happened and when the markets were about to open, the first institution which opened was the liquor shops. And trust me, and when the government was saying, please maintain safe, say maintain your social distance. Every day, every time I pass through a wine shop where people queue in for your liquor, I see people have the general sense of uniformity where unless you stand there in a line or a queue, you don't get your stock there. So that's where even a smaller design or a thing goes into a social practice rather. See, unless the social behavior changes, nothing, no design can be a flawless design. It's upon people to take up the design and follow it with a regular thing. Once again, which happens in all other places where the society at any place wherever you do, they all started doing the same practice. So as David was mentioning there, this is the time where the cities or the people start using
there was a slight disconnect, I think, internet issue when you were speaking. So I thought we almost lost you. I get your point. I'll take that question to Siddhant. There is also a question asked by one of our attendees, and this is directed at you, Siddhant. Wouldn't it be better if the government takes a stronger approach for disability support initiatives in the existing organization, public spaces, as compared to teaching the same through education in school? I think Fernandez is arguing that it should be the government's responsibility.
Okay, for that I just have one thing I would like to quickly just show on my phone only. Since you're talking about the government's responsibility.
If a bit closer to your No, no. Now it's yes.
Do you see the ramp? That's the ramp for a public toilet by the BMC, and they even have it is proved, it is ticked, it is so for government it is just a box that they have to tick. Over here it says ramp for a wheelchair user, the toilet is accessible for transgender, the toilet is accessible for male, for female, that's it. And then it's a correct tick approved by the BMC, and this is the ramp which they have said, okay, we've made a ramp. Now, if we always say that it is the government's job, yes, it is their job. Let's us also learn to contribute to it. Let's not just pass the baton. "Ye tum kar lo," that is your job. It is our job as well. Like we are trained as designers, right? We are trained to design for the needs of people. You can't only design for the need of you and me. And people don't realize that the ramp is actually not for the person on the wheelchair, but it is for the ease of the person pushing the ramp. So we are actually designing for us rather than saying thinking that we are designing for them. So when we start bridging that, and this thing keeps on always coming up that government needs to do. Yes, they need to do. If you read the Accessible India campaign, if you read the RPWD Act 2016, you will realize that there are initiatives, there are things that have been taken up. But again, as an organization, it is upon you to take that. And what Gurmeet sir was saying about the penalizing thing, right? The sad part is that we are not penalizing in the right way, and we're not even appreciating those who are doing it. So it can't only be that punish, 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 but also appreciate, set forth a brilliant example that see, they have done it. And I think that's one thing in corporate, if somebody else has done, okay, we also have to do it. Come on, let's do it. And let's use that competitive edge for the betterment, right? Let's make sure that you channelize that in a way that people can get into. So that question, I feel that government, yes, of course, it is their duty, but they're doing their duty. I think it is not the government's duty. Government did their duty of telling the engineer to make the ramp, but it was the engineer's duty to make sure that the ramp was done perfectly. So who's to be blamed over here? Government just put a tick, yes, toilet has a ramp. Technically, it has a ramp. The technicalities is wrong because that was the engineer's choice. And it could be me, it could be you, it could be the person asking me the question. Right? So we all have to take the onus of empathy, and that is why we say that it is not about them, it is about us, it is about we together that gets into it. And I think ramp itself, as you are asking about a social example, right? The best idea for design, and I think ramp is one of the best examples. And I saw that myself. I was in Kashmir in one of the schools over there, and because of the snowfall, that it was the only DPS Srinagar and the only special needs school in Kashmir. Because of the snowfall, entire entrance part was covered, and they did a smart thing. They cleaned the ramp first. They let everybody could go through in the building. So that is an idea of social design where you create, rather than creating accessible design, let's think about universal design. And that is when you start appreciating that it is for everyone and not only for one thing. And just one last statement I would like to say that, and I feel really sad about it, is that in the name of inclusion, in the name of accessibility, you start differentiating people. Oh, this toilet only for a wheelchair user, this toilet for normal. Let's design places where everyone can use. And I
And
hope
there
Blue Cafe will come up with a accessible toilet.
All our toilets, thanks, Dan. We can share the pictures. All these toilets are disabled friendly. We have a ramp
Oh, amazing.
with a proper access, and the toilets are built as per the design and the requirements for a disabled wheelchair to
It's amazing.
go around. We have grab rags for them, and this is on the international standards of visible toilets actually. So that's
Amazing.
right from the level of your sanitary items to your reach access, everything with the grab bag. You all see one when you are
brilliant,
at
brilliant.
I'll
And
give just one
yes,
thing.
yes,
Sorry. Giving my I was amazed. I was at Tate Museum last year. I was one of the fellows over there for a program. They have a policy of a non-fragrant soap in the, so it goes to the understanding that fragrant soap could trigger any action, any reaction for those with cognitive abilities. So not to even have that. So literally speaking, it is upon you at what level do you want to go to. That you even going to the level and the detail of having a a very silent hand dryer and a non-fragrant soap, so that the person with cognitive abilities are also welcome in that space. So it is really multi-leveled, and it is upon us at what level we want to get into and do it.
And with that, I think we are reaching the conclusion of our first session. One question which we left unanswered was from Madhu Nair. And in fact, it was answered by all of the panelists in some way or another, where he says, many of the social designs seem like they are a cost-washing effort. What's your comment on it? So I believe while it looks so, let's look at social designs and designs which are made to bring people closer without any otherings being involved. And with that, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me for this session. This was really exciting. The second power session that we are going to have today will be on a trend which emerged during the time of pandemic. And as we move to those sessions, I'll have to say thank you to all of my session partners who were there on the last session. Thank you. And may I please invite the session, second power session panelists to please switch on their phone. Okay. So as I was mentioning, one of the biggest trends that we saw during the pandemic was nobody could have imagined that we would spend most of our time indoors. While this brought us closer together to the family, many of us have begun to realize that our immediate surroundings and space have an impact on our mental and physical well-being. What this has triggered is called a trend called nesting, where like the buyer viewer bird, people are actually creating their affordable luxury homes, dream, and their spaces bit by bit. This session is powered by Script and Godrej Locks. And to chair this session, let me please invite Sakina, who will be the session chair for this. Can we have Sakina on the screen? Hi, Sakina.
Hi, Supreet. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy and excited to chair the session with my powerful panelists, as I can see. So yes, that's Meena Murthy. Hi, Meena.
Sakina, I need to do the mandatory introduction of yours as well.
Okay.
So Sakina is an experienced communication expert with an extensive knowledge of media and public relation in the architecture and design industry. A renowned professional throughout the design domain, Sakina's career spans close to 2 decades. And she has worked during this time with renowned names like Sumesh Menon, Rajiv Parekh, Alphas Mirror, and many more. Sakina, once again, thank you for joining us on the panel and for chairing the panel. The stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm also waiting for Rajat. Okay. Yes.
Hi there.
Hi, Rajat. Okay, hello everyone. I have all my panelists on board. Yes. This is Sakina extending a warm welcome to all the panelists for the Dekko Musing sessions on an interesting topic, nesting. Let me begin with introducing you guys. I have Rajat Mathur. Rajat Mathur is a business head, Script Godrej and Boys. Rajat joined Script in February 2015 and has been heading the team since then. He plays a key role in the strategic and conceptual framework of the brand. Rajat has rich experience in leading large global conglomerates in lifestyle and fashion industry with expertise in retail business development and operations. Prior to joining Script, Rajat had successful stints in Bata, Primus Retail, Reliance Brands, and Calvin Klein. Rajat did MBA in Marketing Management from IPM Meerut in 1999, and he enjoys traveling around the world. Next on my panel, I have Meena Murthy Kakkar. Meena is the design head at Envisage Projects, on a multidisciplinary firm that offers design and builds solutions pertaining to various platforms of architecture. Meena pursued Bachelor's of Architecture from SPA Delhi, after which started her design quest while bagging accolades in the field as a designer and a teacher. Sharing her incredible knowledge with the young aspirants, she has been teaching design at SPA Delhi since 2008. In her 10 years of teaching career, she guided seminars on AI and architecture and held corporate training workshops for final year students as part of the placement session. She designed the India Post Payments Bank for the Government of India, which was inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Welcome, Meena. And finally, we have Shibani Jain. Shibani Jain is the founder and CEO of Biodesign, a design studio and store which focuses on innovation for interior spaces by leveraging artisan skills. With an iconic store in Raghuvanshi Mills and a design studio for customized projects, Baya has emerged as the go-to place for handmade, well-crafted art and decor solutions and gifts. Shibani is a designer by education and an alumnus of NID Ahmedabad. In the last 25 years, she has worked with the corporate sector and created various companies as an entrepreneur. For 19 years, she has worked extensively with Indian arts and crafts at the grassroots level and with various craft groups across the country. Shibani founded Baya with her passion for the craft sector and for talented artisans who deserve opportunities to showcase their skills. At the same time, she believes that interiors should be styled with bespoke art and creative expressions of stories that speak to the users of the spaces. Shibani also co-founded Catalyst for Social Action, an NGO dedicated to providing holistic care, rehabilitation to children in the institutions and orphanages. We were to have, I think, Farah from Fat Studio, but due to personal reasons, Farah has been unable to be a part of the panel. I welcome all of you and look forward to get some great discussion happening on nesting. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to reconsider the way we live and build a future. As people are confined within their homes now, more than ever, there's a spotlight that has been cast upon the way residences can accommodate the demands of the new unforeseen era. Homes begin to play a greater role in our day-to-day lives. I'd like to start with Meena. What are the design's essentials that camouflage luxury that we shall need to adapt this new normal season? What would you say the mantra of today's home design would be? Meena.
So, see, right now we design for two sets of people. One would be the Gen X and the urban millennials. Okay? So I would like to talk about the urban millennials first. I can hear something.
Yeah.
Can I some? Okay. So I would like to talk about the urban millennials who are in a very, very interesting phase right now. It's extremely important that we address that. See, we as an urban millennial, we travel a lot, and that combined with technology, has brought in a true global awareness in terms of trends and standards across the world. But what we need to understand is that this technology actually connects us to an ocean of humanity. I mean, you are liking and comparing things with a person whom you didn't even know existed before that. Now, this trend is also making us question who we are. There's a necessity to define one's own identity to come up with the answer of who am I and why do we need to do that? There's a reason. See, when we design a home, okay, we are talking of strictly home design here. When we design a home, it surely needs to echo with what one stands for, what one believes in. It's a space that's like an extension of your personality. And when one has to find that out, that sends millennials on a path of self-definition, you could say. Now, what does this search bring forth? This search actually brings forth a need for us to have a cultural connect in our spaces. Now, this is the new trend that we are talking about with millennials. See, as they say, luxury was truly invented in India. We have no dearth of style and opulence in our repository. I mean, so the style that's being adopted by the millennials would be that of a simplified and adapted Indianness. Okay, so traditional art and crafts, they're making their way back into our contemporary structure, but with modern technology and materials. So repackaging local with an appeal that's global, I think probably That's what describes affordable luxury for the millennials right now. So, and if you're talking of Gen X is, their need to be global is more important than this. So they are in a very secure space. So whenever we do a trend or a design for a Gen X, it's more to do with global trends. But for millennials, it's an adapted Indian. So that's where our luxury definition comes from for these two generations.
Correct. I get that. I totally agree with that. But Rajat, I would like to know that, like Meena said, the millennials are now, they're a very constantly changing personality. So how do you define, what is the definition of this constantly changing personality, and how would you address that as far as design is concerned for a brand? Your speaker's off.
Sorry for that. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So completely agree. And I would not only talk about the millennials, I would talk about the millennial mindset, because, the universe of people having that mindset today is much larger than the millennial themselves. And they are very, very dynamic. They are constantly changing. So for a business owner like me, I need to be really, really on my toes to keep seeing what changes are happening and how do we adapt. But we do try and understand what are those key values and ingredients which really resonate with this crowd. And the three things that I would like to point out that we focus on are basically, these guys are very, very socially responsible. They admire brands which follow values like sustainability, are socially responsible, care for the planet. So we really try and incorporate these values in whatever offerings we create. It is one. Number two, this entire lot is a great balance in their psychographics between practical functionality as well as the aesthetic quotient of the products and services being offered to them. So you need to maintain both. It has to be great in terms of form, function, aesthetics, and top of the line design which is not more than what is required, neither is it less than what exactly is needed. And the third thing that is there is that these guys really appreciate businesses that simplify life around them. Lifestyles have been changing, and hence they really, really are admirers of solution providers. So if you look at all the aggregator apps like Ola, Uber, and Urban Company, etc. around us, look at the phenomenal growth that these guys have been able to achieve in no time. So we pick up these three things essentially, and try and sue them across whatever we offer. So I think these are three core fundamentals that every business needs to keep in mind when it comes to serving the millennial mindset.
Shivani, you'd like to add on that?
I think I agree with both of them when they say that it is important to have a cause behind the brand. Millennials respond to that and they want to know about that. In the marketing, it's important to establish that information very clearly with millennial targeting. What is it that you stand for? Apart from your products, is there something that you stand for in the brand which is well beyond your products? And I think millennials are interested in that. They're interested in topics which are global, like black and white racial topics, or you have the Hong Kong and China topics, different things today. They're really into that, and they feel very passionately about all of those things. And environment, sustainability is definitely a big thing. But other than that, outdoors and living a healthy lifestyle is very important to them. I feel it's a constant with all millennials. I feel that brands like I feel that millennials these days go for low sugar seltzers. They want to go to a North Face to get the best outdoor camping equipment and jackets, and they want to go to a coach and get. They are into quality on the one hand, but on the other hand, the outdoors and healthy living is something that is, I think, important for them. Yeah.
I mean, I've always seen that the definition of a home now is actually changing. Like home used to be a 2 BHK, 3 BHK, or a 1 BHK earlier. But now for this millennial, and I think most of the young people would agree that home can be anything from a paying guest space or a hostel or whatever. So like co-working, we are now getting into the concept of co-living. So tell me, what are the adaptations as far as blurring of the lines for the co-living that you would look at design and Meera?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that last
So
statement?
the
So what is the blurring of
adaptations
lines?
of, the adaptations of the blurring of the co-living. Like your living room is no longer only a living room, right? You have lots happening in your living room. It's your work room. You're bringing the air outdoors in and all of that. So I wanted to know, what is your design take?
Yeah, so the pandemic has actually blurred a lot of lines. Okay,
Yes.
so all the definitions that were strictly there before the pandemic, now all of them have just blurred lines around them. So as you said, flexibility and adaptability is the one of the key factors that we need to be working around. So when you're talking of co-living happens on various levels. One co-living is, of course, all the family members doing their own thing stuck in one home. That's also co-living of one sort. The other co-living is when you have the young generation who are away from, say, a permanent home. They're working and they're in a city for work, and they want to live together, and because that's the only family they have, social interaction. There's much more of an opportunity for you to interact socially in these co-living spaces that are there. So in both these cases, you have a, say, certain fixed personal zones in the house, and then there are these common interaction zones. So at any given point of time, you have a choice of whether you want to meet people. If you want to meet people, you don't have to make too much of an effort. You step out into that common zone, and if you want your own space, then you come back into your cocoon that you've created. Now, earlier when we used to talk of just co-living as different people living in one building, it again had better definitions of having your own room. Now with entire families stuck inside one house, one has to go about redesigning their homes. Okay, now this could be this turns into things that, for instance, earlier our living rooms used to be the biggest areas in our room. Now we are not inviting that many people. So what happens is a family room plus a dining plus an open kitchen forms your entertainment zone, and your previously the drawing room that you had could have like a sliding folding partition, and that turns into an office zone, come an entertainment zone. So it's very flexible. So I think co-living has acquired a whole new meaning over the pandemic, with you co-inhabiting a space with your own family members as well. So there's need for privacy in home, and then there's need for social connection in the other traditional co-living spaces. So I think that's the lines we're talking about right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I completely agree to that. Rajat, what is your take on this?
Well, I mean, this pandemic, I think one silver lining has been that all of us have been kind of locked into our home spaces for almost like 6-7 months. And we've been able to discover our home spaces much better than ever. We used to just have a day outside and then reach home, perhaps maybe home in the weekend, but then we've been just inside our home spaces for the last 6-7 months. I've been able to discover each and every nook and corner of the house. And though it started like almost like an adversity, but then it also led to discoveries. So home today, home space is no longer a place where you kind of spend good quality time with your family members only, but it's become your most comfortable and productive office space. It's become your gymnasium. It's become your fine dine restaurant. It's become the theater for you to binge movies, consume OTT, follow your passions, hobbies, experimental cooking, and whatnot. So with that, people have also realized, and people discovered what can be done to, and these changes are not only going to last till the pandemic lasts. I'm sure this is going to extend way beyond it and going to kind of become a new normal. Also, if you were to look at personas today, unlike some of the yesteryears where people used to be known for what they were qualified as or what their occupation was, today people are more than just one occupation. And he may be a banker, he may be also a DJ, he may also be a cricketer, He may also be a great experimental chef. So multiple dimensions to personalities. People have discovered how to carry on all of this within the home space now. Uh, the need is, and they feel like a home should be like a lookbook or a mood board to reflect their persona. From a furniture perspective, and I'm sorry I keep going back to furniture because that's the business I am in. Um, we've always been connoisseurs of these activities happening. We've always believed that lifestyles are changing, lifestyles are multidimensional, and even well before the pandemic started, we thought of these some key activities that people have started doing in their home space. From home is nothing new. It's just gained traction, intensity with the pandemic coming in. But we started thinking about this and started designing almost something we call an ecosystem, which is like more than one furniture piece coming together to offer you the greatest experience when you work from home, or when you're Netflixing for 6-7 hours together, or when you're wanting your me time, or when you're trying to meditate or do your exercise. So the need is to have fluid solutions which can move across any part of the house. So it's not only something which is designed for the living room, that thing can move into your bedroom, multifaceted furniture pieces, furnishings, which can aid you in doing all these activities with the greatest level of experience. And I think that's the direction probably design needs to take, not only in terms of furniture as a category, but overall. And I would also go to the extent of saying that the future of how homes will be designed, perhaps these things will be definitely kept in mind, so that you have perfect spaces, neat little corners to carry on these activities. It'll no longer be the living room space and the bedroom space and the kitchen space. It's going to go well beyond that. And that's what the pandemic will probably leave behind once it goes.
Interestingly, during the pandemic, we had clients, obviously architects and interior designers, who actually realized, because they lived for the longest in their homes, otherwise everybody is always on the move and moving in and out. We had our clients coming back telling us, we realize our design flaws. So when they're designing a kitchen and they're telling the woman that, no, this cabinet needs to be just like this, shelf needs to be like this, and the lady of the house is saying, you know what, I'm not really comfortable. They're like, no, design aesthetics need to be that. We had so many clients coming back to us saying that we realize what are the flaws, because when we step in the kitchen, we are not able to do this as functional. It may be very stylish, but it's not functional. Shivani, you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, I think even my own experience has been in the last 6-7 months I've been at home, and when I walk around the house, I find so many things missing. There are bookends, and there are dustbins, and there are laundry bags. I don't know, all kinds of things that are not there at home and should have been there. So I have a millennial at home. In fact, my daughter is exactly born around 1999 December. So she's a millennial. And if I look at her, she would really like a space which has a place to exercise, which has a place to sit and work with her laptop. Millennials somehow want to use all of this in one space. So her exercise space, her sitting on the bed and working on the laptop, and her she rarely uses the table. And I feel that they work in very different ways from us, and we have to recognize that they work in a very, very, very different way. They don't look for formality anymore. They don't look for formal structures. They adapt much more easily than we did. And we require a table and a chair to sit down and converse. They don't. They actually can have pretty good conversations wherever they are. So I feel that this adaptability needs to be taken into consideration. If you're designing a bed, design it such that maybe and put your laptop, you can put a glass of water, a jug, keep a space where you can have a yoga mat, you can have an exercise area, keep some area which has a small little garden or some plants or something like that. And of course, say no to plastic. I think millennials are very passionate about plastic. Yes. All the millennials I met have consistently told me that, and she keeps giving me lectures on how I should remove all plastic from my home. So I think that they're
so true.
Yeah,
they are much more sensitive to what is happening, and they kind of respond to it very differently.
Yes, they respond to
I
it
agree.
differently and they adapt much faster to their surroundings.
Yes,
So
yes,
I think
absolutely.
that adaptability should be seen in whatever we create for them as well.
No, and
Multi-purpose.
they are an action-oriented generation. I mean,
They are
I've
very,
seen that. Like you, I also have a 23-year-old son, and at times when the pandemic, we had to sit home and work, and we were in our corners. I used to get stuck up saying, "Oh, this is not proper. That is not proper." He would always
yeah,
have solutions. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. And what they're
yeah,
looking out for is automation.
yeah.
So the pandemic,
Exactly.
I
That's
believe,
the
has
honest
caused
thing.
that surge of getting automation in homes.
Yes.
It anyway was, but earlier it looked like an extravagant amenity. Now I think it has become a safety protocol also, if we could call it. What do you say, Meera?
Yeah, of course. Automation is now more into our parts, into our everyday life than it was ever before. So, and millennials, they get super excited by it as well. So, there's a whole lot of. I mean, we do a lot of home automation also. So whenever we are doing villas and stuff, there is a lot of scope for home automation. I mean, especially now, the pandemic, when you come home, you need that warm water to take a bath immediately. So, you need all the, everything set when you enter the house, so you don't have to wait. So yes, automation is a big part of it. See, there's a lot of change happening around us all the time, and this is, I mean, we are living in such fluid times that it's crazy. But I think the millennials are doing a great job of adapting themselves, right? No word of cribbing. The adaptability is beautiful, and I think that's something that we need to pick up as designers as well. I mean, because as designers, I would say we apply design thinking, and the main feature of design thinking is having an ill defined problem. Okay, so let us all be ready to accept that ill defined problem and to find solutions which also keep changing with our problem. So that's something that we need to learn from the generation of today and adapt it in our scheme of things. I think that's
Brilliant,
automation
Meera.
is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Rajat, I would like to ask you, since you are dealing with this furniture bit and all of that, businesses have slowed down. Okay, it's taken a hit. Now things are slowly opening up. Like we discussed this morning, you rightly put it that there were 3 phases, and this is the last. We want to make up on all the lost opportunities. But you realize the spending capacity is still an issue. If that people want to spend over a period of time, they don't want to spend all together, and design changes also, they would want to do it over a period of time. How has the spending pattern changed, and what do you think are the key factors that are driving that change?
Um, Look, we've kind of bucketed customers or profiles into two, really. I mean, one set of people who are heavily mortgaged, and the other set of people who are not really into loans and EMIs, etc. So the problem of prioritizing or delaying the buys or spending is mainly with the mortgage set of people. They're also with where script is positioned, and the kind of customers that we have. There's not been a big impact on their mindsets on spending. They are spending. Okay, we've in fact been very happy to see the kind of footfalls from the day our stores opened up. Um, and I'm talking about physical stores. Online furniture is a tough challenge to sell still, because it's a category which needs that touch feel to happen before you make the buying decision. The guys who are without mortgages are anyways fine, and we've had large ticket buys, etc., happening, especially after July, seeing that traction. Um, I would say what is more pertinent to us, at least, is the fact that more than the financial implications or the spending patterns, I would again like to reiterate, it's the clarity of thought which has come in people on what exactly they want to buy because of the time they've spent in their households and because they've been able to understand their own spaces, their own needs better. So I would not worry a lot about the fact that so on a business, the issue is the footfalls that we have. We are having around maybe 70% of the footfalls we would normally have in a normal course of time.
Wow.
But as far as our ticket sizes are concerned, and as far as the offtakes are concerned, we are pretty happy about it. yes, there is a huge segment which is prioritizing their buys, who are delaying their purchases, or who are just buying the smaller furniture pieces, which are the bare minimums that they need to fill up right now to make up for their, work desk or a small chair or an office chair, so on and so forth. But largely, I think for us in this affordable premium segment that uh, we are really not experiencing a lot of not buying and delayed buying syndrome at all. It's more of the mental block still of going out in crowded places, going out to physical stores and buying. um, but they're all very accessible through technology. Some of them have shifted to buying online. Uh, if we are able to satisfy them with great product demos and store walkthroughs, etc., uh, I think the market is going to bounce back, and buying is going to bounce back quicker than we all think. I mean, I really expect things to be very normal by Jan.
Super. Shivani, since you also have a store and decor, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think that home and home decor and home is an important area. So people are actually coming back to home stores. It's not been as impacted as, say, fashion stores. But having said that, definitely I feel that footfalls have come down, and in fact, our online has gone up. So we are selling more online now than we were selling previously. And I also feel that the impulse buyers are far fewer because the crowds have thinned out or whatever. But people are not buying on impulse. It's the serious buyers who are coming. They are looking for something specific. They come and ask for it, and you give it to them. And I feel personalized selling is becoming important, that you have to set up an appointment, spend time with them, talk to them, and give them the service one on one in today's environment. And also, when you talk of sustainability or you talk about a social cause, I feel people are responding to that much better than they did 6 to 7 months back. Today, if you say that you're also feeding artisans, you're also doing your products that have an impact on rural lives, people are listening. I feel that there is a little bit of shift in their thinking. So,
I feel
yeah.
this pandemic has been an awakening for a lot of people. Yes,
Yeah.
Meera.
I would like to add to that. See, as an architect we do design and build solutions for residences as well. Now, actually, I can say this, there is one major trend shift in the residential design segment as a result of the recent pandemic lockdown. See, as Rajat rightfully said, see, the pandemic has obviously increased, many people working from home, but this is a trend that's going to outlive the pandemic for sure. So many people are planning to, continue with this model. So the house has suddenly gained a whole lot of importance. The sudden onslaught, of the lockdown has also seen people arranging and rearranging the spaces literally haphazardly to define new working zones inside their houses. And now, say 6 to 8 months down the line since when they did this, it's turned into a complete disarray of sorts for most people. Okay. Now, what this has done is that it's made people realize the importance of taking professional help to sort their spaces. Okay, now the actual challenge that now lay in front of them was to get these spaces redesigned while they continued living there. Okay, it's a huge challenge. Now, this has made a new typology of what I would call as operational space redesign inside homes emerge. So you don't design the entire house, you design spaces that you operate out of. Okay, so it could be a single room where you operate out of, or a combination of spaces catering to a particular task. So which is now your new scope of work. The ticket size has become smaller for sure, but the numbers for us have increased actually quite a bit. Now, it certainly for sure. And this segmented redesign, as we call it, actually helps the user in more ways than one. Firstly, most of them, they work. Most of the work which is it's now happening off site. You're not getting your carpenters inside the house now. Due to the pandemic, we are all fearful of having too many people inside our homes. So it's even more advisable to take all your production and everything off site. So when your ticket size is smaller, it's easier to get that thing done. Then elements are prefabricated in workshop and they are assembled at site in just a matter of a day, couple of days, maximum 2 days or 3 days. So this minimizes the disturbance at home. So you're living there and you're getting work done. So it's easier to do that. Secondly, and more importantly, it gives much better financial control over the process to the client. See, the monetary commitment to the process is better defined in this manner when it gives them more confidence to spend more per area. Okay, this is something that's a trend that we notice, and I would like to talk about it. Before the pandemic hit, whatever they were willing to spend on one room, we have seen a direct increment of 30 to 40% more.
Wow.
For instance, if a residence in totality was to be done in, say, for instance, just a figure, 25 lakhs, okay? When you break it up in segments, it will cost you more. It will take the cost up to say 30-40% more, but people are willing to do it because what it does, it doesn't take the entire full commitment from you of those 25-30 lakhs. Okay, it's been broken down into segments. So this makes the client, it gives them more satisfaction of being in control rather than having that fearful feeling of being over budget. So this is a segment that's coming to us in crazy numbers now. People coming to us when they say, we want the house done, but could you please do 2 rooms first, 3 rooms first, 1 room first, and then you package it slowly like that. So, and people are spending much more on this as compared to the previous one. So I think, yes, this new trend is certainly a welcome.
Correct. So we can fairly say that, they like to spend over a course of time. And I think you very well put it, what it means by spending over a course of time. Okay, we have a very interesting question from the audience. This is a question by Dipesh. He says, is this generation putting design over purpose or vice versa? What's your take? Let me start with Rajat. What do you think?
I actually think this generation puts both in a very balanced way. I don't think they put design over purpose or purpose over design. Both ways. I think it's and I mentioned that. I mean, it's pretty well a very balanced approach. So it's both design and functionality. In fact, design to the extent of being really in an equilibrium kind of a situation where it's nothing really much more than what is required and nothing. That's what I've got as a feedback. That's what has been my observation with the people that I've been seeing in not only in our stores, but overall across product categories.
So you think it's a very balanced approach?
I do think so.
Shivani, what do you feel?
To me, design is purpose. So I can't distinguish between the two really. But if he's asking that, is it beauty over functionality or beauty over purpose? I think purpose plays a very key role right now.
Nice. Very clear and transparently put. Meera, what is your take on this?
Yes. So I would say purpose helps you identify with the space for a long duration of time, and design or aesthetic beauty, if that is what we refer to as design here, it gives you the first beautiful impression and the satisfaction of getting a space done. So both of them are equally important. So when millennials come to us, they are, as I said, this generation is very well aware of things. They don't go with hearsay. So they're very well aware. So when they come to us, they know that if they're hiring a professional, they need their, say, storage is sorted, or, very well interesting solutions in terms of space usage need to be there. But at the same time, all of it needs to be very coherent looking, and they would have some style in their hand, and it all needs to kind of come together to form a very nice solution. So yes, purpose and aesthetics, I think there has to be a very good balance for us to also justify our presence in the project.
True. One last thing which I'm personally wondering is, do you think that the new normal, what would be the trends of surfaces or materials? Will there be a lean somewhere as to, okay, this is something that we can use more, like glass surfaces or any those kind of surfaces which would come up as a trend in furniture or design or stuff like that? Rajat, what is your feel?
I think health and hygiene is going to be to the fore. So when we talk about, say, upholstery, for example, I mean, if there are fabrics which are antimicrobial or something like that, surfaces which are easy to sanitize, keep clean. I think that would definitely gain priority. It's going to be more tilted towards this health and hygiene. It's going to stay for a while, and it's for the good. People have realized. I mean, um, one thing that we also should, if you look back at the last 7-8 months, we've all been using sanitizers, masks, all kind of precautions have been observed. So if you kind of try and recall people who've got normal viral infection, fevers, flus, really gone down. It's either COVID or nothing. So that's because we are all so conscious now. We are really, really so neat and clean. So I think if there are surfaces or materials which can help in aiding, synergize, or take care of health and hygiene, probably yes. As of now, I'm not really aware of anything like this or a big breakthrough which has come about, but maybe people are working on it.
Shivani, what would you say?
I would say that comfort, natural, informal, and healthy are going to be what millennials seek in their textures, in their environment. They are an informal bunch, and they like informality in their clothes and their bags and whatever they wear or where they sit around. And comfort is very important to them. I think that the feel of the fabric, and that it should be breathable, that it should not have any plastic component. All of that becomes kind of very important.
Meera, surfaces which you have been, which has caused a change, you're pre-designing and post-pandemic designing. She's frozen, I think. Meera? I think, yes, her internet is an issue.
Yes, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So, see, we've another interesting thing that we've realized is that, see, people nowadays they don't want to follow trends blindly. Okay, so they are very intelligent. They want to make an informed choice. So people are moving away. See, sanitation, as you said, was obviously it's a foremost concern for all of us. So hard surfaces come into play more than soft surfaces. Anything that's easy to clean, easy to maintain. So false ceilings are becoming a little minimal with people. They don't want coves where you can't go and clean. They don't want dust to be settling down on nooks and crevices. Upholstered surfaces again are going a little down. So a lot of people do realize that a lot of our traditional homes, the kind of finishes that we had and the kind of furniture that we had, maybe we could bring back those elements because they were so well suited for our climate and for our conditions. So we are seeing a huge revival in traditional designs coming back to the current. So it's as I said in the first thing that you asked me, there's a cultural connect also.
Yes.
There's this ease of cleaning and maintaining these homes. They are very easy to maintain actually. So you go with any contemporary stuff. At times, you have to think whether it's going to accumulate dust or something. But you use stone, you use wood. It's so easy to work with. So yes, that is the trend that we are seeing, that people say, okay, and traditional Indian homes had interiors where the furniture played a very less role. I mean, the furniture was sparse. So, and all of them, whatever you had was lifted off the floor. So it's easy to clean the floor. So even the furnitures that we do, people demand that, okay, don't give us bulky, huge stuff. Give us something that's kind of light and easy. We can clean under it. Or even the Roomba can go and clean under those furniture. It's very easy. So that's another trend people are picking on. So yes, light and easy to clean and easy to maintain, and something that brings back memories probably. That's a new trend that we are looking at.
I think materials like copper will play a role. It's antimicrobial and it's somehow very much in vogue right now. So
true. I agree.
Silver, silver is also extremely antimicrobial, but the worst one is actually stainless steel, something that we so blindly used to put everywhere, and we used to think it's easy to clean. Stainless steel germs last up to 72 hours on stainless steel.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, while copper, silver, all these things are self-cleaning, but you can't use copper and silver around your house everywhere. So now, of course, as you know, you have these antimicrobial toppings and coatings and which come up, and you need to kind of work with that around. But whatever we do, we need to be aware of the materials that we're using, and that's the thing. That's all.
Yep. I think we've had a great enriching session. I'm sure people have learned a lot, especially from your design tips from Rajat, Shibani, and Meera. Thank you so much for joining me, sparing the time, and thank you, Design Dekko, for having this. Thank you.
so much.
Sign off.
Thank
Certainly,
you.
guys. Sakina, I'll hold you there. If you can
Yeah.
stay back with me for 1 second.
Sure.
Usually, moderators don't get time to respond to queries. So I thought I'll pose one question to you.
Sure.
Right now, people are very sensitive about vocal for local. They are buying smaller accessories. Even if they are minor, they have minor defects, they are taking it up. But do you think so once the pandemic is over, this sense of, vocal for local will just become a fad and people will move on to, purchasing from bigger shelves? What's your understanding?
Meera?
You go ahead. I'll add on to it later.
I don't think, I think they will get into the habit and they will get used to using the vocal and the local, because that comes with a very different cultural, and it's a very different look and feel. And then you feel very connected. The idea is the connect value also. When you're doing something, like Shibani very rightly said, it's always with a purpose. So you immediately get that connect. And I think that trend is to stay. I'm sure the trend is to stay.
If I can add to, I feel that the impact of this current time is here to stay for a long time. It is not going away. And if you look at 1 year as say the period that it lasts and we live with it, then I think it is something that is bound to create some sort of change which is not immediate or too fad driven or trend driven. I think it's bound to create a deeper impact. So I'm really hoping that the vocal for local works, because really speaking, in today's time, you are not able to travel as much. You are not able to get the imported goods as easily as you used to get them. You used to just hop off to Singapore and buy clothes. I mean, it doesn't work that way anymore. So this is going to stay with us. And I think if brands here recognize that there's an opportunity and, build that, it will be something that will have a lasting impact for all brands.
I would like to add to that. Okay, so I would like to add to Supreet, you said even if there are imperfections, people are buying local. Okay, that is where I would like to stop you. See, we need not accept mediocrity just because it's local. There are a lot of people doing excellent work around us, people who are making local stuff. Okay, Indianized furniture, Indian adapted furniture, who are brilliant in their work, and those are the people we need to reach out to. Being vocal for local means search for the best around you and not just accept anything that comes your way. Okay, there are imperfections, if there are any that you would like to adopt, would be probably the artwork that our artisans make. Okay, I would definitely prefer, say, a statue which is handmade, an idol which is handmade over a 3D printed perfect one. Okay, so now we need to know where to accept the imperfections and where not to. And just because some people are imperfect doesn't mean the good ones don't exist. We realized during the pandemic, and we were actually pretty vocal for local even before the term was coined, that we need to have local partners. We can't be looking at importing stuff and all that. And we realized there are some people who are doing brilliant work around us. Okay, and we were so happy to discover these places. And I think that's been one of our biggest takeaway from this, that we realize so much is happening around us which we never even bothered to look at or consider. I think this should be everybody's mantra now. So
yeah,
go look for the good thing.
Say that when we say imperfection, when you create things that are handmade, for example, or which are made by artisans, it's not called imperfection. It's actually called the touch of the hand. Because when you create with hand, every piece has to be a little different.
Absolutely.
In Japan, there's the concept of wabi-sabi, where the products are misaligned purposefully, and I think there's a beauty in that, and that recognition should be there, which is different from poor products or imperfect products.
Absolutely, absolutely.
True,
Yes,
true,
for sure.
totally.
So, Preet, I would also like to add my support to this vocal for local. I mean, albeit on the back of a pandemic, I mean, it's such a great chance for all of us to help the local industry and the economy at large to develop, And there is so much of skill and talent, whether we talk about artisans or design, which is available in this country. They don't get the right platforms. They don't get to see the light of the day. They are just great in their skills and mindsets. I think, I hope that this is there to stay for a long time and forever, and I think we should just stop blindly going and to import things. There is enough and more which we can, develop and source from within India. Everything is possible.
Yes.
And also, what the talents and skills or skill sets that we don't have, once this movement starts, they'll also start developing. So once
Also,
a small beginning can lead to a development of a huge ecosystem, and this entire drive of Make in India can really, it can really catapult everything, change the way we are on the world map.
and as people from the construction industry, we need to be even more, say, responsible for this, because if you don't, say, give enough credit to these skilled artisans, what do? They leave their job and they become unskilled construction workers. Now, what you've done, you've taken a guy who's so brilliant at his work and you put him into something where he's actually bringing down the standard of work there. Okay, so it's a lost situation at either end. So let's support local, be vocal for local at the right places. Let's not bringing the wrong people at the wrong junctions. Let's choose excellence over mediocrity in any space that you do in vocal, and being vocal for local at the same time. So,
At the end, I think it's all our responsibility to get that vocal for local out there. Each one of us plays a great role in that.
With that, thank you for a fantastic session. I'm sorry I took the Q&A a little, stretched it a bit, but lovely to have you on board. And thank you, Sakina, for moderating.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Same.
Thanks. And as we, reached to the end of this day, the question that is left to us to think is, can we script a more sensitive, inclusive, and solution-oriented future? And when we do that, the only question that should bother us is, what kind of ancestors will we be known as when our children look back? Let's come back tomorrow again for Design Dekko Day 2, and I'm pretty sure you will love what's going to come. And for that, let me show you a glimpse of what's tomorrow's session and speaker. Thank you all for joining us. It has been a lovely day, and see you tomorrow again, same time.